We've got a huge a lot of things to cover, a lot of ground to cover with our next guest. We're very excited about it. The markets, the Fed, why he's excited about private markets, AI, some very provocative views about Alphabet, which, by the way, didn't make his fantastic 40 list, and so much more. An exclusive with famed tech investor Philippe Laffont. He's the founder and portfolio manager of Coatue. It's a tech hedge fund, a private markets investor, $55 billion under management. Some people think of you as a venture capitalist to some degree these days. What do you think of yourself as, actually? What are you anymore?
The winner of the AT&T Pro-Am is what.
That's what we just heard.
Is what he thinks of himself.
That's true, but I don't think that's what my investors would care about.
Yeah, they might not like that. You're too good. Your name is on the wall.
It is.
It's
supposed to be on the wall right there next to Rory McIlroy. So
for me to be on there, I'd have to change my name to Philippe Laffont.
There you go.
For me, yeah. Congratulations.
Well, what are you these days? Because you're doing a lot of things.
When the market goes up, then I'm definitely a public investor. But then when the market doesn't do well, I switch to, venture and growth. But I think that in general, now you have to be a life cycle investor. Sometimes you have a new idea. It's a small little company. Then you miss it as a small company. You try to invest it in again. You miss it as a big company. You invest within on the public side. I think more shots on goal at the end is what you hope for.
I said at the beginning of this, and I've teased it a couple of times, because you put together a fascinating deck from your East Meets West event, which is an unbelievable thing that you put together, about what happens to the Mag 7. This is sort of a public markets issue, but really a private markets issue, because you think that this whole thing may ultimately turn over.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the Mag 7, it's been so popular for a while. And I felt like this year maybe is a change. And if you remember a few years ago, the Mag 7 was called the FANG Index and then the FANG++. These indices change. And we were thinking, like this year, there's some Mag 7s that have worked out well, some that haven't. Is it the change of the guard?
And you think this is it?
I think this is it. I think that with AI, it's sort of this big new wave. We're sort of ushering out of the era of cloud and SaaS into the era of AI, and there's going to be some changes.
So who are the half a dozen winners that replace them then?
So we looked at the, let's say, top 25 companies and what happens to them every 5 years. And some of them just drop out. They run fast, but they don't run as fast as the others. Then you've got some new IPOs that come in. Is OpenAI going to be part of the Mag 7 of the future? Is SpaceX going to be part of the Mag 7? And so we try to recombine the index and imagine we're here today, NASDAQ 100. What's the NASDAQ 100 5 years out?
And who's on it then?
Okay. I thought you were going to ask me who's not on it.
Well, we can do who's not on it. By the way, Alphabet's not on it. Tell us why.
You know what I did? I just thought some of the big companies are going to be amazingly positioned. Microsoft is going to stay on it, and maybe today it's a $3 billion company, but let's say it doubles in 5 years, it could be 5 or 6 billion.
Oh, trillion.
Trillion, yeah, sorry, of course, trillion. Then we added Bitcoin. We thought of Bitcoin as a company. Today, I think Bitcoin is 2 trillion. And we're like, well, could it get to also 4 or 5 trillion? Obviously, Bitcoin's not a company. It'd be like saying if gold's a company, but I thought it was interesting as a new asset.
Yeah. Right. Market cap. Yeah.
Market cap, 2 trillion is so big.
When did you get involved in Bitcoin?
I've not gotten involved with Bitcoin, and I wake up every day at 3 in the morning, and I'm like, why am I such an idiot? What have I been waiting for, not being involved in it? And it just goes up and up. In the past, I think this is interesting, the retail investors, they were much faster at getting involved with Bitcoin than the institutional ones. And I always thought Bitcoin's amazing, but it's double or triple the volatility of the NASDAQ. NASDAQ's already pretty volatile. Why do I need to deal with this added volatility? Recently, Bitcoin, when it went down during the tariff, only went down as much as NASDAQ. So it seems the volatility as an asset class is coming down, which I thought was pretty interesting.
But given your sort of thesis, do you say to yourself, even at this point in the ball game, if you think it's going to double or triple and going to be part of the NASDAQ 100, if you were to think of it as a company?
Yes, I have to think about it.
That you should own it now?
Yes, I have to think about it now. Do I own it now? Do I own it tomorrow or in a few days? But every day, I do think, why do I not own it? And I think to be a good investor, it's not just like owning the obvious stock, but sometimes you have to change your mind and you have to just say, well, I made a mistake and I'm changing my mind, and maybe Bitcoin will be that.
How do you come up to that valuation? Is it as a percentage of gold's market cap or something?
So I thought like the market cap of the world, the net worth of the world is,
yes,
I think, 450 to 500.
Trillion.
Equities are, let's say, 120. Gold above and under the ground is 20.
20 trillion.
And then Bitcoin is 2 trillion. And I was like, okay, well, 2 trillion, let's say it represents 0.5% of the net worth of the world. Could it go to 1 or 2? Some people say, oh, Bitcoin's going to be 100 trillion. I'm like, okay, that's not, maybe a bit of an aggressive estimate, but could it double over a period of time? And then we talked about the de-dollarization of the world, the end of U.S. exceptionalism. So those would be some of the reasons.
Hey, Philippe, you mentioned that because of SaaS and cloud kind of not being as powerful, that's why some of these companies are going to move out. We've had other people who have come in and said the Mag 7's not going to be as strong in terms of an investment vehicle because they now have to spend a lot of money on things like AI development that they never had to spend before. Do you think about that? Or you think Microsoft's still going to be there because as long as you're a leader in AI, it doesn't matter if you have to spend a ton of capex to get that?
Yes, that's a great question. And the idea would be like, look, the free cash flow is going to disappear. They're going to have to reinvest so much. And in fact, what's funny is at the beginning of the cloud, about 10, 15 years ago, everybody said the same, Microsoft and Amazon, why are you guys spending so much in this new business? And at one point, I remember the new business was losing 10% of the overall profits. And today, it's 50% of the profits. And so I think you have to invest. But public investors in general, we just want things to be like they were. Please don't invest, just keep growing, give me my little returns. But I think the entrepreneurs, they're like, no, this is a huge business, and we got to go for it.
Where do you stand on the hardware side of all of this? Because there's a sort of great debate. Either we are in a massive shortage of chips, and we're going to be needing this stuff for as long as the eye can see, or this is like a big overbuild a la fiber, some of the fiber stuff that was going on back in the late 90s.
Yes. So you think about it in terms of the return on investment and say, wait, we're spending $500 billion a year, multiplied by 2, because if the chip is $500 billion, the total system is $1 trillion, the data centers, the cooling, this and that. Where do we get the return on the trillion? I think maybe 2 years ago and 1 year ago, some people were saying, look, the return is not there, this is crazy, we're in a bubble. But when you speak to companies now, the amount of AI that they're implementing, the savings that they're getting, and if you think of the world economy, I think just in the US, labor is maybe 20 trillion, the savings that we could get off that. You look at Microsoft, their number of employees is going down. Amazon, Andy Jassy.
You just had Andy Jassy at your event.
He was unequivocal that basically the number of employees over the long run is going to go down. Those are the benefits of AI. And so I tend to see like the glass is maybe half full and half empty, but I'm very much on the half full camp.